We talk about, when these girls get here, we've kind of touched on creating, these employable skills. But I want to back up. I want to go all the way back to how do these ladies get here? I mean, are they all from Indiana? Where do they come from? What do you do when they get here?
Yeah, so they come from all over the U.S. right now. We often say it's really better if they don't come from Marion County or the local area because it's easier for them to run. When you first come out of human trafficking, these girls usually know two things: fight and flight. Sometimes they'll fight you because they want to get away and they don't trust anyone, and because of that, it can be pretty intense those first few weeks. That's also a time in which they can run or take flight. And so if they don't know where they're at, though, they just know they're in Indianapolis, Indiana, but they have no idea where.
They're not friends that come pick them up.
Yeah, so it's so much easier for us to be able to make sure that they're taken care of and that we can keep them here. And so, but if they know Marion County pretty easily and they know a friend and they know people and they can get out of here, then it's so much easier for them to leave.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like we're holding them against their will, because it's not like we're kidnapping these girls and like, hey, you have to stay here.
Exactly.
But I know that they're really, when you've been traumatized like that and you've been in that type of environment, coming to a safe space, coming to a place where there's not chaos can be incredibly uncomfortable. And the idea of working on yourself and working on your therapy and not doing what you know, it does create that intense desire to just take off and not do it.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, we're a volunteer program, so they have to want to be here. But in the process of them wanting to be here, we want them to understand that we want them here and we're going to do everything we can to encourage them to be here, because sometimes what you need is not what you want. Right. And so they come in with all kinds of addictions as well. And they usually don't run away from here because they want to run back to human trafficking. They usually leave here because they relapse and they're going back to an addiction. And so that's why it's so important for us to be able to work through those first few weeks with them and trying to help them to understand it's a safe place. We're doing what we can to get you through this. And once you get through this, you'll be on a pathway toward your healing, and trying to help them to get there. So when a girl shows up here, the first thing that we do is we try to get her into the Jane Pauley clinics here in the east side of Indianapolis. And so they work with us with these girls. They do a complete physical. And then that helps us to understand what we're dealing with physically. And so once they come back, then we are able to make sure that they're taking their prescriptions and all the things that they need to be on and working through their physical needs. And they have a lot of them when they first come. So they haven't been to the doctor for a while. Many of them have not been to the dentist for a while. They haven't had eye care. There's just so many physical needs that they have that we need to address some of them too as well. Once they come back, then we do a complete assessment when it comes to their emotional needs and trying to figure that out and put a plan together. And so we've often talked about the plan of hope. The plan of hope is, what do you want to do with your life and how can we help you get there? And so our hope is, they always say something like this: I always wanted to be, and then they fill in the blank. I always want to be a teacher or this or that. So what do you think your first step would be to get there? Probably need to get some education. Well, that's a good start. Let's start there. And so that's kind of where we started putting the 5 pillars together and trying to figure out what would it take for a young girl to come into our program, be here for 15 months, and then be able to go out into the world and be successful and be part of society. I remember early on, Dave and I would just spend hours thinking about the needs of these ladies and researching other programs. Whereas we wanted to understand what are other people doing out there in all these different areas. And even though there wasn't a lot being done in the area of human trafficking, there was ministries out there that was helping in the areas of addiction, even in the areas of battered women and some of those things. So we began to research and think about it. And the more we thought about it, the challenge we thought was almost, it was daunting to us to think about how we could begin to provide some of these areas and to think about how we could do it in a way that would help these ladies be willing to actually begin to go down a pathway that would help them in these different areas. So we realized one of the things that we needed to do right away, and of course we're a Christ-centered refuge, and so we wanted to make sure that we kept their spiritual life at the front burner and helping them to understand that life that they've lived is something that can be in the past, and they can have a new beginning. And through that process of helping them to understand they can have a new beginning is also helping them to understand that the shame and the guilt and the regret of those kind of moments of their life can go away, and they can begin to sense forgiveness and unconditional love and the grace of God, and through that have that new life in Christ. And so helping them to get to that point is really a place where we can begin to build upon that firm foundation of, we believe that they can completely reconstruct and become a brand new person and begin to live their life in a way that would honor him and be able to accomplish things that maybe they would have never been able to accomplish before. So I think the first area is the area of spiritual walk. And so we encourage them, of course, to come to prayer meeting on Wednesday night. We encourage them to go to church on Sunday. We encourage them to go to their devotions on each morning. They have a Bible class, and so it might be something like Discipleship 1 is what I used to call it, where they learn how to read the Bible, they learn how to pray, they learn how to share their faith, they learn how to memorize Scripture, and the basic things, if you've grown up in the church, that you would realize that you really need to be able to walk the Christian life and be able to continue your faith journey and to grow. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, get them to start that journey and then to grow in that journey. And some of the girls who come in here, they've had praying grandparents, they've had praying parents, and they maybe have been in a church before, and for one reason or another, it just kind of got sideways and they got down their pathway journey, and they just needed to get back, and they really want to get back. And so they're looking forward to coming to a faith-based organization and trying to reconnect with the Lord and allow him to begin to heal their hearts and their lives. So
I want to just point out something really important, because you've told me this before. They don't have to be Christian to come here.
No.
So anyone from anywhere, any denomination, any belief, they are welcome here.
They are. And, we often say they understand who we are. And we kind of walk them through that in the admissions part, because we don't want them to understand. We want them to understand that we are a Christian organization. And so these are the things we do here. We have a prayer center. We have prayer. That's important to us. And we live and act like Christians here, right? So we want them to understand those things. We're a smoke-free campus. There's different things that's going to affect them and when they do come. So helping them to know that up in the very front part, it helps them to be willing to accept it as well. So,
Pastor, we've talked a little bit about the programming, and I've heard you mention the 5 pillars. What are those? To somebody that has no idea what we're talking about.
All right, so the 5 pillars really is the areas that we felt was most needed for these ladies to be able to put their life back together. So the first one would be spiritual and their spiritual walk. The second one is wholeness when it comes to their physical needs, as well as trauma recovery, Celebrate Recovery, all the recovery programs. Another area is career and education, helping them to begin to discern what they want to do with their life, where they want to go, and how they would like to go about doing that, and what educational needs do they have, or what career would they like to pursue. Another area is relationships. We realize how important that really is for them, and trying to help reconcile some of the relationships of their family, friends, whoever it might be. And then the last one, of course, is financial, helping them to learn about financial literacy. So those are the 5 pillars. We function like a college. Every quarter, they have to take a required class in those 5 pillars. There's also electives that they can actually choose. But those are the 5 pillars that Dave and I kind of put together and felt like if we could actually help them walk through those 5 pillars over a 15-month program, we can really impact their life.
You were talking about the spiritual is the first of the pillars, right? There's 5 pillars, but when you were talking about, you said you and David were doing the research, and it was just daunting because unlike addiction, there are so many different aspects that are affected when they're in trafficking. So there's trauma and addiction and the spiritual emptiness. So what are those 5 pillars that you guys came up with to tackle these?
Yeah, so of course the first one was the idea of the spiritual, helping them get going. And then we realized that wholeness was really another big part of that. So whether it's getting them to the doctor, helping them with their physical well-being, or whether it's literally helping them to understand about eating habits and exercise and just nutrition and how they should be eating and working through those things. And so we had Get Fit gyms come on board to create really a gym for them to be able to work out. And we often say this, it's just like yours at home in the basement, right? You still have to get on it. You still have to use that. But some of them do. They enjoy working out and going over there, and it gives them something to do while they're here. And so helping them to realize the physical aspect, if they really are exerting some energy and working out, those are good things. It's healthy things for them. And then trauma recovery, which is another big area, right? So getting them to their therapists, getting them to counselors, or helping them to take trauma classes and to understand the trauma that they've been through. And so all of that is part of the program now. And we realized it was really important. We didn't probably realize the importance of it because it is such a big field right now when it comes to trauma and what could actually be affecting that young girl and what she's faced in the past and how she's going to have to navigate through that. So and then in the area of wholeness, we also have to worry about the addiction process. And so to get them to celebrate recovery or AA or NA or one of the recovery programs, realizing that they all kind of have different areas of addictions, that's another area that we're kind of working on. And then the area of self-harm and then the eating disorders. There's just so many things that these girls are battling, and some of them have several of those issues. And so I often say just one of those issues is enough to destroy your life. And some of these ladies have 2 or 3 of them. And so the challenge that we have is really mountainous when it comes to bringing forth healing, but we just believe that God is able to do that. And so we see us chip away week by week, seeing these girls opening up and getting better. And so that's a wonderful thing.
I know that education's a huge part of what goes on here, but not every woman that comes here is the same. I mean, we've had ladies that have barely graduated 6th grade, and we've had ladies that have, college degrees. How do you treat so many different women that come from so many different places? How have you configured that to work?
Yeah. When I think about some of these areas, you think, how can people have college degrees and end up being someplace where they would have never dreamed they would ever get to? And yet it happens. And one thing kind of leads to another, and before you know it, they've gone down a pathway that was dark, and they don't even know how they got there. And so when they come to us, even though they have a college degree, they're still pretty broken, and they are kind of bankrupt when it comes to hope and just help and trying to discern how to kind of get out of what they've kind of been in. And so trying to bridge the gap between someone who has a college education and also someone who maybe didn't hardly finish elementary school and doesn't really know how to read, or some of the basic learning skills that you and I would have just because we grew up in a home where there was some reading and things that were going on, right? And we went to school because mom said, you need to go to school, those kind of things. But I think taking each girl and making it an individual program for her, that's why we call it the plan of hope. What's the plan for you, your life? And then realizing where we can start with them. And so for someone who has a college degree, it might be just all the physical, the emotional healing that she's needing to work on. She may not be wanting to do anything in the area of education, but she might be thinking more about career change or something like that. So we can begin to talk to her a little about career. Do you want to serve? How do you want to work here on campus? Begin to work in those areas. But for these other ladies who still need to get a high school diploma, then we can begin to assess them. That's the beautiful thing that Marian colleges come in to help us with our Hope to Rise educational area. And so we are able to test them and see where they are academically, and then put a plan together to help them to begin to get their certificate for the state of Indiana. So, and just to be able to provide them education. And I often say to the ladies, if you leave here and you don't get your high school diploma, it's really our fault, because that's one of our goals. That's one of our pillars. We want to make sure that if you stay 15 months, we're going to see if we can get you there. Now, I realize today, though, as I say that to them, there are some handicaps. There are some areas where these girls are really going to struggle to get that area. And so we are doing the best we can to get them to a better area, right? And I don't know that we can get every one of them a high school diploma, because of the different handicaps that they have and the challenges they have. the emotional health of the girls that are here, the ladies, but it ought to be our goal, and we want it to be their goal as well. So getting them in those classes, and then also being able to provide computer classes, all different things that they could take to have more life skills when they leave here, from Microsoft Word, all the things that they can actually learn and be part of. And so we're just doing everything we can to kind of evaluate. And like I said, each lady is kind of different. And so we just have to put a plan together for her, and working through her caseworkers and the people who are speaking into her life every week, working with her mentors, her sponsors, if they are part of CR or AA, working with people like that just to continue to speak into their lives to help them.
Another big part of your personal mission with these girls was to make sure that you could reconcile families to the best of your ability here on campus. That some of these women, a lot of these women, they have children. They have had husbands, or they have moms and dads and brothers and sisters. And what are some of the things that you've implemented to help with those relationships?
So we realized early on that a support system is so important. If they go through our program and they don't have support when they go out of here, it is going to be really difficult for these ladies to restart their life and to be able to keep it going. And so the challenge wasn't just putting together a 15-month program. The challenge is putting together a 3.5-year program, or something that they can continue to do. When we had one of our first girls here, she came from New York, and she was here for like 3 months or so, and she was doing fantastic. And I was really encouraged by seeing the progress that she was making. And so she said to me one day, she said, "Pastor, I think I'm ready to go." And my response was, "I don't think so." But maybe, in some ways we were wanting her to stay and continue to work on a healing process within what we would call a structured setting, right? And she ended up leaving. And it was probably a couple months or so after that, I got word back that she was doing fantastic. She got a car, she got an apartment, she's got a job, and I thought, man, that's just amazing. Why did that all come together for her? And then I heard that her sister was a pastor, and she took her under her wing, and she mentored her, and she was her sponsor. She was everything that she needed when it came to her support system. And so that's why we say, man, the moment that they leave the campus, that support is so important for them to be able to make it out there and work on that. And so we began to realize that those are big areas that we had to do something with. And
I know that one of the other areas was also, you talked about, when we were talking about the education portion, that these women come from all different backgrounds. And we kind of touched on, some of them have degrees, some of them don't have degrees, but that's also life skills of, some of them come from, alcoholic addiction homes, or no homes at all, or they've lived on the street for so long. So the simple fundamental things of how to clean, how to make your bed, how to do your laundry, some of those things that are tackled. And another big one is how to handle finances. I know that's been a big, huge aspect of education for these women, is learning to handle money. I think that's a big education for all of us. I took a Financial Peace University not too long ago, so I'm still personally learning on that. But it is lifelong learning. But you have partners that you've partnered with on some of this. So this isn't something where you've hired people and we've trained them and it's all in-house. Like Marian University, you have partners that come in and help do this.
Josh Bach has come in to help teach our ladies financial literacy, and I think he would be a great interview, and I think it would be really good for him to come and share just the things that he does with our ladies. And so this is one of their quarterly classes. They have to take this every quarter, every 90 days. They have to kind of branch into financial literacy and learn about how to handle money and work on those things. And so, but we're really grateful for Josh, his partnership, and all that he's meant to the center, and the encouragement he's brought to these ladies. And I think it does give them a sense of confidence when they are able to realize that they can have a checking account, a savings account, and begin to put a budget together and what it's going to take for them to actually go out there and be successful and be able to rent an apartment and have a car and go to work and pay their bills. And I think for most of them, it's pretty eye-opening when they actually see a budget and what it actually costs to live, So that's pretty eye-opening for them, and to realize, oh my, I got to do all those things. So, and because most of them haven't, and they haven't had an opportunity to really work with anything when it comes to dollars and the financial means that they would have.
That's awesome. I know we're going to have an opportunity to talk to your daughter, Mary Nolen, who has a huge portion to do with the programming itself, and Gina Kolklaser, who is the residential director. Is that her title now?
Yeah.
And she also runs Wellsprings, which is a resource center for mental health. So we'll have both of them on. We'll get a little bit more into, because I know that's we've just barely scratched the surface on that. And I know we want to dig into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, when it comes to these 5 pillars, you and I talked maybe 20 minutes here or something. And this is a 15-month program that people can land in and be part of. And we're doing everything we possibly can, I think, to try to put together something that really will help these ladies to be empowered and to think, I can do this, I can go out and I can start again, I can have a life and I can be successful in that. And so we're trying to accomplish that. I mean, literally some of these ladies are here now, are managing some of the businesses. I mean, they're doing some great things when it comes to where they are, and they're learning and being part of that. So that's been really good. We talked, I think, a little bit too about the relationship part, and you had asked me, I think, about some of them have children, and you guys have been working really hard to put this back together for them. And so that was one of the things, I think, that we realized, that family reconciliation is really important for them. For those who maybe have lost their children to Child Protective Services, or they've been adopted, or maybe grandma or grandpa, somebody has their children and they want to be reconnected to them. And that is a big part of their life here. And so we just thought, okay, man, if we can go through that process where we could reach out to the person who may have their child, and if they would be open to reconnecting with her, what would that look like, and how could we accomplish that? And so through the years, as we've reached out, many of them said yes. If she's in your program and she's really wanting help and she's working on that, we would like for her to see her son again, her daughter again, whatever it might be. And so we've literally had some of these ladies who hadn't seen their children in 5 years, 7 years, be able to see them again. I mean, to them, that is like, Christmas. I mean, It's like the best day of their life to be able to hug them and see them and just let them know how much they love their kids. And even though life hasn't turned out the way they had planned or hoped, it doesn't mean they still don't love them and care for them. And then to see some of them who are here that maybe have older children, whether in the teens or whatever, come back into their life has been beautiful. And to be reconciled with those kids and for them to cheer their mom on, right? And to say, man, Mom, we're here, we're supporting you. We want you to get better. We want you to get healthy. We want you in our life. And so that's really a good thing. And so we just try to do our best with that. And we work with Warrenly, which is another faith-based clinical group here on campus that helps with family reconciliation. And so they have an 80-bed facility in Richmond, Indiana, but they come here and they do therapy classes for the ladies, and they can be a therapist for them, but they also do family reconciliation. So we're just really grateful for their partnership and how they kind of work in those areas. We mentioned that every quarter they have to take a relationship class, because we really want their relationships to become healthy and to begin to work in the area of family reconciliation and just helping them to understand how important their support system is when it comes to family.
So I want to pause there for a second, because you said class. They take a class.
Yes.
And that really is how this program is designed. It's much like a college campus where they get to take classes they can sign up to. Some of them is just on interest base. Can we talk about, because some of those classes are really fun. I've thought, hey, I should take that class. I wonder if we could take it as volunteers. There's art therapy, there is sewing, so many things that are on board here.
When it comes to the 5 pillars, every quarter, every 90 days, they have to take a required class in those 5 areas, because we want them to continue to learn and work in those. Then we have what we call electives. So just like you go to college, you have your requirements for your degree, and then you have electives that you can take to broaden your understanding and be part of a culture, right, that where you live in. So when it comes to like your art therapy, sewing ministry, even jewelry making, all the different things that they can actually connect with and be part of, it's just another way, I think, of them expressing themselves and being able to use their hands. And I think it's really been helpful for me to see that, even going out to the greenhouse and being part of that. It's like therapy for them, to see the beautiful flowers and the plants and all the things that they can see growing and how it's coming to life. And so that's another neat thing, I think, for them to be part of and be able to be associated with.
So we've talked about the program, and they're here for 15 months. But you've actually, Hope Center, in the 5 years they've been open, you've actually birthed a couple other ministries out of here already that have come from needs that you guys have. And one of them had to do with that sewing program with Margot Ward, who I love Margot to pieces. And she put we had the sewing room together, and she says, I'm going to get a sewing ministry together. And she doesn't even sew. She does not even sew, but she has now launched Hope Launch.
Yeah, and so she's really wanted to take this into some of the local jails and begin to work in those areas, maybe even the women's prison, teaming up with Butler University, working in some of just hands-on skills that people could have to create businesses. And so I think Margot would be a great interview for you,
right.
And she could come in and talk about
get her on here for sure.
How people donated all these sewing machines for us to be able to do that. And I think, one of the stories that Mary loves to tell was about one of the girls that she was talking to in the lunchroom or something. And she asked her how her day was going. She said she had just been to the sewing class. And then she said to Mary, and I'm really good at it. And so she could just kind of see a sparkle in that young lady's eye, because it was something she was good at and she was proud of that. And so that's kind of what we're doing. We're just trying to find things that they could really feel real encouragement and to feel positive about when it comes to their self-worth and their identity. And so that's part of that. In the relationship class, that's kind of what we talk about a lot, is their identity and their self-worth, and helping them to understand that they do have great value.
It's not just the ladies that are being affected here. And I think that's, the mission statement changed just a little bit in the beginning. And you said, this is bigger than this. It's imparting hope and healing
to every heart.
Yeah. And that really has happened, because you've seen it kind of expand and explode. Michelle Gambrell is a phenomenal example of that. She came in and she was volunteering in the kitchen to help get the kitchen up and running, which, if we go back to one of our original podcasts, it had not been renovated in a very long time. It was in pretty rough shape. And Michelle came in and decided to tackle that for us. It's blown up since then.
She just kind of came as a volunteer, trying to think about how we could do some ministry through the kitchen, right? And well, as we began to put the residential program together, we realized that these ladies have to have meals.
Right.
And
they have to eat.
They have to eat, and several times a day. Yeah. So anyway, she had a real heart for that. And so she began to think about ways in which she could get free food for us, because, that's another part of your budget, and trying to feed these ladies and take care of their needs every day. And so then she connected to other businesses who were willing to give us free food and package things. It's pretty amazing to me, all the contacts that she got here in the Indianapolis area. She ended up buying her own trailer. She has her truck. And so she now goes and literally gets pallets full of food every week across to Indianapolis and brings it back here. And then it was after that that Kroger, Midwest Food Bank, Gleaners, decided that they wanted to do something in David's honor, and they created the David Nolen Pantry of Hope. And so now Michelle kind of oversees the Pantry of Hope, and we have given away about 700,000 pounds of food over the last year or so. And to think about the impact we're having in the community for that is pretty amazing. So they do literally a drive-up food pantry every Thursday night here at the center, and if people need help, they can come here. We're willing to help serve them and help them in any way that we possibly can. And so they literally line up tables in our hallway, and they bag it all. So it all comes in, it gets sorted, that it gets bagged, and then we carry it out. And it happens every single week. And so there is about 15 or 20 volunteers that show up every Thursday to make that happen. And to see that Michelle now is over all of this with her little truck and her trailer
right.
and all the things that she's doing is pretty amazing. And to see her love really for helping people who are in need is beautiful. And that's kind of who we are and what we want. It's another great way, I think, for us to feel like Dave's life is impacting still. And he would have probably never thought there'd been a food pantry after him,
Right.
right? So it's one of those things he probably wouldn't have thought. But and then to think that she's created the ability to serve the women and bring in volunteers to help cook meals. And sometimes we forget, we have some elderly ladies who love to cook, and they come in to serve, and they just love cooking homemade meals really for these women. And it's amazing. And for us. Anyone on campus, for staff and residents and volunteers, anybody who's here that day can eat lunch here.
You're getting fed.
You're getting fed, and it's really pretty tasty. I'm telling you, they do a great job, and we're just grateful. But she's kind of organized all that, put all that together, and then, like you said, from cleaning to recreating and renovating and doing all that, it's been a major undertaking. And we had to get a new roof on our cafeteria, which is like $85,000. And she began to be a fundraiser too. So she's fundraised. She's ended up raising money for a couple forklifts for us here on campus and helping get money for the cafeteria roof. So she has done so much, and the heart that she has, when you think about volunteerism and just the ability to see people really serve well. She serves so well, and we're just grateful for her and her husband, Greg, and really their commitment, because it's beautiful to see a couple do things together. Because, the bad thing would be if she was always gone to the Hope Center and he was never here and he was always home by himself. But doing things together is a beautiful thing. And so I think it makes it easier. And when you're done here, you go out to eat or something. I mean, I'm not sure what they do, but then they can go out and enjoy. But so grateful for their partnership.